Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of AI Unplugged. I'm your host Travis Freisinger, and today we're delving into a transformative shift in software development. It's not just a fleeting trend, it's a significant evolution. Talking about what I'm terming conversational coding, a way of interacting with code that's revolutionizing the developer experience. I'm not just going to talk about this technique. It's kind of really rooted in the way I've been approaching things very manually over the years, but I'm going to look at tools on the market, kind of what's out there to support this idea, Copilot, Codium, Cursor, as well as kind of explore what companies like Anthropic and Amazon are doing to harness this conversational coding that's pushing the boundaries of innovation. So let's get started. So, what exactly is conversational coding? So, if you've been keeping up with AI developments, you've likely noticed a shift from traditional code writing to something more interactive and hopefully intuitive. Instead of manually typing out every line, I guess we had autocomplete before. We're now using natural language to generate code snippets, debug, and even in some cases do some simple system design. Now imagine sitting down at your computer and instead of writing the logic for a function, you simply describe what you need in English. Prompt through chat. The AI understands your intent and generates the code for you. Now ideally it's the right code, right? Like I'm not saying that this is perfect and this is going to replace engineers. I guess what I'm saying is that it's about augmenting engineers or developers' capabilities, allowing developers to focus on higher level problem solving, architecture, and creative thinking. It's not so much about the syntax anymore and getting all that right. And its evolution isn't just theoretical. Developers are on the cutting edge are already experiencing it firsthand. It's not just something I've thought of and been working with for the last year. I'm starting to see prolific people in the industry, companies like I've alluded to, Anthropic and Claude, are starting to come into this fold. So Andre Karpathy, a renowned researcher, is sharing his own experience on Twitter. I've got a quote here. Well, I've got his tweet. Programming is changing so fast. I'm trying VS Code plus Cursor plus Sonnet 3.5, so the Cursor tool with Anthropic's model. Instead of GitHub Copilot, again, and I think it's now a net win. Just empirically over the last few days, most of my programming is now writing English prompts and then reviewing and editing the generated diffs. And doing a bit more half coding where you write the first chunk and then maybe comment a bit so the LM knows what the plan is. Then tab through completions. Sometimes you get a 100-line diff to your code that nails it, which could have taken 10 plus minutes before. Absolutely agree. This is the exact thing I'm experiencing. Now, I've also tried Cursor. It's a game changer for me. Copilot just doesn't have it. It's more than just an autocomplete. It really leans into this chatting and being able to diff the code back. That's the piece I've been really missing. Karpathy's experience highlights a fundamental shift. He's moving from traditional coding, key by key, to something that feels more like co-creation with the AI. That's why I'm calling it conversational coding. He's not just typing out code line by line, he's guiding the AI, reviewing its suggestions, and refining the output. This approach is powerful, so powerful that Karpathy even admits, I basically can't imagine going back to unassisted coding at this point, which is only impossible. It's only been possible in the last couple of years or so. I think the sentiment catches the essence of conversational coding. It's about leveraging AI to take on the routine parts of coding, allowing us to focus on the higher order task. Many developers are finding that AI generated code is not just faster, but more accurate and making it an invaluable part of their workflow. Now, obviously, people, I tried it once and it was all garbage. Yeah, 6 months ago it was trash and every day it gets better. Honestly, it's improving, it's coming, the tooling's there. So let's take a step back for a moment and consider how technology has evolved in other areas. So remember when basic to moderate graphic design required intensive knowledge of tools like Photoshop, Paint, maybe if cut it was really simple. Designers or wannabe designers would spend hours, meticulously tweaking everything, mastering the layers, filters, all of that stuff. Then came a tool like Canva, which really democratized some basic to moderate design and allowing people to create visual appealing graphics in just a few clicks. I've used it, much simpler to do some basic logo design. And suddenly, you don't need to be a Photoshop expert or insert tool here to have professional looking designs. Inkscape, I think, is what I tried using in the past. And this shift didn't like replace all the designers in the world. It kind of freed them up to look at other creative possibilities. It democratized access to basic design tools so that people could do it themselves. I think similarly in software, we're seeing the same evolution of tools that help in not only writing code, but in maintaining it, ensuring quality, and facilitating collaboration. Historically, coding's required deep expertise, especially ensuring that your code is both correct and efficient. However, as projects grew in size and complexity, and as teams became more distributed, the need for tools that could assist in these areas became apparent. Take linters, for example. Linters analyze your code to catch errors, enforce coding standards, and improve code quality. They ensure that everyone on the team adheres to the same coding practices, which is crucial for maintaining a cohesive code base. Without linters, you could end up with code that works, but it's hard to read, maintain, scale. Maybe not so much scale, but you get the point. Linters are a prime example of how the industry has evolved to help teams work together more effectively. They've become essential tools in modern development pipelines, catching potential issues and ensuring consistency. Absolutely. I remember a time before the linters and all the things we have. Oh my gosh, like argument over spaces, tabs, bracketing style, you name it. Then there are version control systems like Git, which have transformed the way teams collaborate. Before version control, coordinating among developers was a nightmare, especially as teams grew. SVN, CSV, they were not great tools. They were better than the previous generations of tools, but it still didn't really make me go, oh gosh, first thing I want to do is set up source control. I have to. That said, I've had clients with literal billions under management that still don't have source control. Um, Different time. So Git introduced a way to merge changes, track history, and effectively collaborate seamlessly. I guess merging changes was always there; it just was easier. Even when developers are working on different parts of a project simultaneously. This evolution has made it possible for teams to scale, for companies to manage large code bases, and for open source communities to thrive. Then we've also got tools like continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines. They're going to automatically test and deploy code, kind of ensuring features and new features and bug fixes don't break the existing functionality, provided there's a decent test suite. They automate what used to be tedious and error-prone manual processes. Oh my gosh, the number of times I've had to manually regress things or do deployments. It was not ideal. This has all made deployments faster, development quicker, and more reliable. And these tools aren't just about writing code, they're about managing the entire life cycle of a software project, from development to deployment. These tools represent a new way. So the tools like Codium, Cursor, Copilot, represent a new wave of AI-assisted collaboration, addressing parts of the development cycle that go beyond the initial code creation. They help with keeping things updated, maintenance, continuous improvement of software, ensuring that what we build is not just functional, but sustainable and scalable, ideally. It is still early days. This is kind of looking to the future based on what I'm seeing, but things are improving every day. The reminder that coding isn't just about writing new features, it's about maintaining and evolving a code base over time, ensuring that it remains robust and adaptable to changing requirements. Now, with AI-assisted coding, we're seeing another layer of automation and assistance being added to the development process. Just as Canva simplified design for your kind of hobbyist user, tools like Copilot, Cursor, and Codium are simplifying code generation, making it more accessible and intuitive. But these tools aren't just about autocomplete, a fancier version of it. They really represent the next step in the evolution of how we work with code. And this brings us to a broader discussion about how industries evolve over time. So in the early days of programming, every line had to be meticulously crafted, often in lower level languages like assembly or C. I've been there sweating over every semicolon, every memory allocation. It was a painstaking process, but it was really the best we had. I didn't have an IDE even. at certain stages. It just didn't exist, right? Like you make a make file and hoping you got everything linked together and it doesn't segfault as soon as you run it. Vastly different world. Fast forward a few decades. I've been doing this for about 30 years for fun. We see the rise of higher level languages, integrated development environments, version controls, linters, CI pipelines, all the tools that make us productive and collaborative. And each of these innovations was met with resistance. I remember autocomplete being met with resistance. Like, oh my gosh, there's always voices warning that the new tool could diminish the craft or make us lazy or somehow cheapen the quality of our work. Yet the truth is, these tools don't diminish the craft, they amplify it. They allow us to take on more complex problems, to build more ambitious systems, and that's exactly what's happening now with AI assisted coding. Or at least it's starting to happen. I'm starting to see the emergence of this. There's lots of support out there for this point of view. We're standing on the brink of another significant leap in productivity, and it's essential to understand that this isn't just about taking shortcuts. It's not at all what I'm talking about here. It's about scaling our abilities, about doing more with the time and the resources we have. So, for example, consider Anthropic's recent development of their artifact feature as a prime example. So I can go to Claude and say, hey, make me a Space Invaders game. And it's going to write the code and kind of put it off to the side where I can now interact with it. I can edit it. And it's a very collaborative type of experience. I can create websites, code snippets, like I was saying, but just a prompt. It's remarkable, and I can prompt it to add it, have it modify things. Like I don't have to go change the code. To me, it's remarkable that, at the end of the day, the Artifacts team in just 3 months developed this conversational technique with Claude. They use Claude to generate artifacts, generating code, UI elements, and rapidly iterating, allowing them to bring an idea from prototype to production ready in record time. It's a powerful example of how conversational coding can transfer not just how we write code, but how we innovate and bring ideas to life. The idea of scaling isn't just theoretical. Let's look to Amazon now. These are big players in the industry talking about how conversational coding is changing the way they operate their software teams. So Amazon recently shared an incredible example of what happens when you combine foundational software work with AI. So foundational being kind of like Java versions, the grunty stuff that has to happen, but we all really don't like doing. Upgrading Java versions across the enterprise is one of those things that's tedious but quite critical. It's the kind of work that doesn't feel rewarding. There's no new features, there's no flashy improvements. It's essentially for security and performance and long-term maintenance. Traditionally, these tasks are either dreaded or delayed because their seem as time-consuming and unexciting. Definitely time-consuming. Oh my gosh. I'm sure there's a school of thought this will always be upgrading. Yeah, that's nice. There's definitely environments where that's not possible. It just can't happen. Regulated environments, you need some level of certainty, right? But Amazon's Gen AI assistant, coding assistant, Amazon Q, has changed the game. By integrating these new code transformation capabilities into their internal system, Amazon was able to reduce the time it takes to upgrade a Java application to Java 17 from 50 developer days, seems like a lot, to just a few hours. And in under 6 months, they've upgraded more than 50% of their production systems. The time savings were so significant that they estimated to save them an equivalent of 4,500 developer years of work. That's an insane number, like literally an insane number of hours. Even if it was 45 years, it's still an insane number. A fraction of that would still be a huge time savings. Now, I would go on to argue that some of this is probably reliant on having a good test suite and some of the other hygiene and acceleratory practices that we have in software. It's not just a once-off in isolation. I do this magic thing and it happens. It's leaning on everything else that's come before. I can now put a new tool in the toolbox to further push things forward. This is a powerful example of how large-scale enterprises can gain sufficient efficiencies in foundational hygiene, software hygiene work by leveraging AI. I think it's a great space for AI. And it's not just about the flashy new features. AI can help with heavy lifting of maintaining and modernizing existing systems. Absolutely key. Ensuring that we can keep pace with the demands of the modern world without sacrificing our existing infrastructure. Software's everywhere. We need to look after it. Let's take a closer look at what scaling really means in this context. In the traditional software development lifecycle, there are numerous bottlenecks: writing boilerplate, debugging, refactoring, ensuring test coverage. Bottlenecks, part of the process. There's a developer experience concept here. But these tasks take up time. They take up a lot of time generally, and don't necessarily contribute to the creative or innovative aspects of development. And not to say that you don't need to kind of have what we'll call engineering rigor sitting there, but they are tedious but necessary. So now let's imagine that some, maybe even all of these tasks can be handled by kind of an AI partner. It's not just a tool that fills in the blanks like an advanced autocomplete, but something that understands maybe a bit of the intent, adapt to the coding style, which I guess if even the fill in the blank tools can, it helps navigate the complexities of building software. I think that last bit's really key here, and that's this idea of conversational coding. It's really where it shines by offloading some of these more routine tasks or every character's syntax to the AI. We're really freeing ourselves up to focus on what matters, designing robust architectures, focusing on the key elements of the problem, and thinking creatively. We're not toiling over the syntax and class design of what we're building, but we're focusing on modularity and composability. We used to have to faff over the syntax and class design to get there, but now we can kind of start there and have this conversational coding piece help fill in the blanks. Now, obviously, you still need to drill into the detail. It doesn't always get it right. But if I can shave, I don't know, for every hour, 10 minutes off, well, let's say an 8-hour day, that's 80 extra minutes. It's nearly an hour and a half of extra time. So I could do things like record a podcast, but still have the same level of productivity. Funny, huh? And let's not forget about the scale of the challenges we're facing today. Software is everywhere, in every industry, in every product, in every service. Like, the demand for high quality, scalable software has never been greater. But to meet this demand, we need to evolve. And I think this is where the friction starts to come in, right? We can't rely on the same old methods that worked in the past. The scale of the problems we're solving today requires a new approach, one that leverages AI to its fullest potential. So this is where tools like Copilot, Codium, and Cursor come into play. They all start with C's. Code, maybe, making a coding Copilot started with C. We've made significant strides, but they still operate mainly within the realm of autocomplete, at least from my experience. I'm not saying that there isn't value there. Just saying there's more value to come. This is the thing I've been really driving it with, this idea of codex that I've been talking about, that I am now shelving in light of what Cursor can. So, for example, Copilot suggests code based on context. Codium does something similar. There's value there. People talk about certain scenarios being useful. But I really like Cursor. Cursor's really given me hope. It's the thing I was looking to build, almost verbatim. It takes it a step further. So now you're more of an interactive in a chat style environment. Yes, you could chat with your code before, but the experience was unpleasant. Like, you got to copy and paste, kind of hoy the code back in yourself. You can ask it to make changes, suggest improvements, and then it gives you a diff to merge back into your code. Now, it's not seamless and it doesn't magically figure out the right file. Sometimes it needs a little guidance. I managed to even get it to paste a command in the command prompt. I don't know how I did that. That could use a little work. To run it, to install some npm dependencies, but it's there. Like, I can see the potential. It's got all the things that I'm looking for, and it's intuitive. It just works. It just flows. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, as I've been saying, but the gains are real, and it'll only continue to improve. Like I said, if I can save 10 minutes out of every hour, 5 minutes out of every hour, that's 40 minutes. I mean, that's time to do things. That's space to be more productive. That's space to do some PR reviews. There's a multitude of things you can do with getting that time back. This evolution shows that we can move beyond tools to true assistants. I think that's the piece for me. That's why I'm so excited to be talking about this, is that I'm seeing this emergence of true AI-paired programming assistants. think about it, it's never going to be perfect. People aren't perfect either. Don't put that. If we can get it to the level of an intermediate developer, I think it's still a very useful assistant. So, real assistant in the creative process of coding. Once again, like I said, allowing us to focus on the bigger picture ideas instead of getting lost in the detail. I focus so much more on architecture and what's the key problem to solve. Like for example, it's on this Scribe AI project. Like I'm not getting stuck into, oh, I need to make a database to save things. Yeah, sure, that's important. But the bigger issue for me is I give a URL, it's going to transcribe and perform a transformation. Now, that's all kind of in process right now. I'm using the cursor tool to push that out into a blob storage without writing the code. Oh, it comes in, it pushes to blob. Oh, the Python gets spun up and, you know, it's listening and like it's helped me understand some deep architectural concerns there that I wasn't too aware of. Like, oh, do I do like a function? I've got long running issues. I was aware of that. But I didn't think of like using a function to then call into a container instance as a way of like brokering it. Now I could use what a message queue potentially and bind it there. But it gave me a novel architectural thing to try. It's a space, right? I may or may not go there. I'm still kind of debating. But it was interesting to see kind of the creativity come out with me partnering with AI, being able to focus bigger picture and in interacting with it to help make those steps happen. Catch it on my live stream GPT with me probably later today, probably tomorrow. I'll say on Friday. So it's about being more of a tech lead and directing the big picture, less about what I'm calling a meat machine typing away on a keyboard, trying to capture every unique detail in just the right way to both inform the machine on what to do and the future developer about the context of what's happening so that they can maintain the code. This new toolbox of software tools will enable quicker exploration and development of ideas than you've ever seen. I'm seeing this and experiencing it right now. I find myself thinking of an idea, sketching it out in what I'm calling my multimodal conversational coding workflow. I might start with a design tool that gives me a layout, feed it in as images, get the code bootstrapped, and move into a more traditional chat. I might feed in images where the layout goes wonky. It's nice not to have to use text all the time. Also experimenting with voice. But regardless, if it has legs, I continue to explore it. If not, oh well. Where before I'd probably have this huge graveyard, look at my Git repos, of potentially started out projects that failed to overcome the friction of initiation. Got a half-baked API and a text full of UI thoughts and dreams, maybe a picture or two somewhere along the lines. Much quicker to explore ideas. I'd say in the last year, I've had probably double, maybe triple the amount of little projects I've been able to explore, prototype, understand, and either move on or lean into. And I'm really leaning into Scribe. I think there's value, at least for what I am trying to do. Remember, the bigger picture here is to build tooling to kind of accelerate thought leadership, trying to pull on that thread. So what about offshore, nearshore developers? Like surely, they're playing some part of the picture. Well, they help reduce cost. But I think the next wave of innovation in software really needs to come from better tools, not just cheaper labor. Like we need to be able to pair with machines in a similar way we pair with humans, extending the gains of human to human collaboration into kind of this AI age. The future isn't just about composing lines of code and ensuring test coverage. It's going to be about architecting systems and modularity, free from the traditional tedium of syntax. There'll always be some, right? That's the specialization, but if I can make that 20% of my day or less, I'll be happy. It frees me up to be this creative outlet through which ideas flow. It's about the innovation, not the software now. And I think that's always been the tension with coding. Really just kind of this translation to inform a machine to go do something because I can't just speak to it and make a request. Put another way, the craft of software development is evolving from meticulous hard work of the past to a more strategic, system-wide perspective. We're going to need less developers, quite honestly. We need to figure out how to scale somehow. It's less about individual strokes of code, or strokes on the keyboard that make the code, and more about the grand design, the architecture, the systems thinking, the innovation that really drives change. And AI is a catalyst for this transformation. We're not losing the craft, we're redefining it for a new era. Because the future of software development isn't about filling in the blanks, it's about expanding the canvas. Well, folks, that's it for today's episode of AI Unplugged. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to visit my blog, aibuddy.software, and follow my live stream at GPT with me on YouTube. All the links for things mentioned here and my additional resources are in the description. Until next time, keep experimenting and stay curious.